We are going live. It should say I'm live right now. I'm just going to tweet out real quick that we are live. Come join us. Tweet. Tweet is being sent. Good evening, everybody. So hopefully some of my regulars show up. Love chatting with you guys. Welcome to JeepSolid Garage. We're continuing with our 4-liter engine rebuild. Today we're going to be installing the cranks. That's super exciting. This video is sponsored by Engine Tech. Using their parts on this build. They gave me, bearings and pistons and rings and gaskets, all kinds of stuff I need for this. I've used a lot of Engine Tech parts and other things and have had really good success with them. So their website will be linked in the description below. Make sure my little tweet sent. Yep, it's sent. How you guys doing tonight? We got Randy Jones, Deluxe Start is back. Spartan, hey Dale, how's your week? It was a great week. Had a birthday. That was fun. Today's been actually a pretty good day. Getting stuff done. Getting all set up here. Got the crank, bearings. What was I waiting on? Oh yeah, gaskets. So I got the rear main oil seal. That was the one part we're waiting on to kind of get this going. Very first thing we're going to do is make a little bit of oil on these, because these are our bearing caps for the crank, and you're not supposed to run them in dry. I was looking for my little oil gun, little oil squirter. I couldn't find it. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll just make a little dish of oil, dip these guys in, and let it drain under the paper towel here a little bit, and that'll be enough oil on them. You're just not supposed to run these bearing cap bolts in dry, so I just want a little bit of oil on there. But for this build, I'm covering everything that I'm doing on these live streams, so if somebody finds these videos helpful, this is like start to finish what I go through for an engine build. So I've got my new bearings here. We're going to be putting them in here in just a minute. I'm wearing nice clean gloves, and believe it or not, this surface is clean. Because during the assembly phase, you want everything clean. My engine block is cleaned, and the crank, I cleaned it today. That's the only thing I'm not really showing on camera is the cleaning of things. I cleaned off the crank, like hosed it out, make sure all the oil galleries are clear. And so we'll pull the crank up here in a minute and just show you guys that. We're probably getting some viewers on here. Deluxe Start. Let me double check the chat here. My chat, I think, froze last time. Hello, Dave's here. There we go. Yep, we're getting people logged in here. So we've got 2 different types of bearings here. One is for the cap and one is for the block. So you can see like this bearing here, no hole in it. This bearing does have a hole in it. That's an oiling hole. We're going to be using Plastigauge too to check our clearance. Check our clearance on our bearings. We've got 14 Farrell. Hey, you're here. Welcome. There we go. I need the live. There we go. Hopefully you guys can hear me good. But we're getting right to it. Step 1, we're going to start installing some bearings. Got those oiled up, got my rear main oil seal here ready to go. A little jar of just motor oil. I can get this out of the way so I don't spill it, because I'd be really good at spilling that. We're ready to drop bearings in. So let me move my camera here so you guys can get a little close shot of what I'm doing. Hopefully you guys had a good week. Yeah, my week was good. I don't have it on the setting I want here for my camera. This is the struggles of live stream. There we go. So these bottom journals, so you've got your oiling holes, so oil will actually come out of there. That's how you get oil on your bearings. Now, number 3, bearing number 3, I was going to double check the orientation, but I think we're good. it is bearing 3. I'm just looking at the crank here real quick. The snout, that side. I've got my crank on there backwards. 1, 2, 3. The third one, yeah. Okay. So we've got a little lip right there. It's going to snap in, and then this will line up with the oiling hole there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah, you guys can. Dave W., my old nemesis, we meet again. Your old nemesis. So these actually just kind of snap in pretty easily. Just like slide down in there like that. There's number 1. And I'm using clean gloves because I don't want fingerprints and oils from my hands on these. These bearings just kind of slide in nice and easy. I'm just watching those oiling holes, making sure they're lining up. Bearing number 3 here. This is the one thrust bearing, so it's a little bit obviously different looking. Make sure it lines up. These ones are a little harder to get in place, but we can do it. Yeah, I might just tap on that a little bit. We're going to tap on that a little bit. There we go. Get it down flush. That looks good. Continue on with our other bearings. And it's honestly kind of hard to mess this part up. You got the little, like a tongue and groove that fits there, and make sure our oiling holes are lined up. This part should go pretty quick and smooth. And then we'll drop the crank in here. We're gonna use a little bit of Plastigauge and check our clearances, so that'll be fun. I don't know if you guys have ever used Plastigauge before. And my last bearing. All my oiling holes look good. And I have my bearing cap for the last one. Just going to check the lip on this. Yep, we're good. So let's drop the crank in. I'm not going to put the oil seal in yet. Where is the third? Why is the third one different? The third one is a thrust bearing, and it controls like horizontal movement of the crank. So we're going to set the crank in here. Very careful. And then we'll talk about that a little bit more. Got the crank all cleaned up, ready to go. And now I'm setting it in here dry. So you want to be very careful. I need to grab this a little differently. Grab it on the snout. I'm just going to set this in here very gently. And because we're setting it in here dry, we want to be careful we're not spinning it at all, because we don't want to scratch our nice new bearing surface. So these other journals that the crank rides on, you guys see, okay, yeah. The other journals that the crank, so you got 7 journals going across, these are the journals. These 2, so it just spins on these, it spins on this one too. But bearing number 3, it controls side-to-side movement, so it'll have just a microscopic amount. There's a tolerance for it to go back and forth, which we can check later. But that's what that bearing is for, is just to keep it horizontally where it's supposed to be. All of these look really good. So we can put our bearings in our caps now. Let me move you guys back over. So this is a lot more. Why is the third one different? That was last comment. Last week, we were doing the head over there and the springs. Well, that was a pain. It was not my favorite part. So crank fits down there real nice. Now, these are all in order. Bearing number 1. Now these guys don't have an oiling hole on them, but they still do have that little notch right there. You can kind of see that, and it just fits in the bearing cap like that. Press it down in there. just like that. So there's bearing number 1, and it's stamped, has a little number 1 on it down in there. And I'm just going to set it in the number 1 position. And kind of finger tight those just so it doesn't fall out. Bearing number 2, same thing. Slide it down in there. This is honestly, I think, the funnest part of the engine building. 'Cause these bearings, they just, I don't know, they slide in so nice. Everything's all nice and clean. Bearing number 2. Just gonna set it there. Oh, shoot. Getting ahead of myself. I shouldn't be doing that yet because we got to do the, why didn't you guys say something? This is number 3. We got to do the Plastigauge. Getting ahead of myself. So this one can be a little tighter. This is bearing number 3, the special one. Yeah. I'm gonna take my bolts out. There we go. Easy. Okay, we're going to put bearing number 3. Just leave them there for a second. And we are not going to get ahead of ourselves here. So we forgot our Plastigauge, our whole purpose of doing this dry. Bearing number 2. And number 1. How many concurrent viewers do we have right now? Fingers. 20 minutes has subscribed. Hey, got a new subscriber. Thank you. Let's see. Oops. 18 concurrent viewers. That's cool. Sorry, I had to go back. Let's talk Plastigauge for a second. So this is obviously green Plastigauge, and it's to check clearances. Hopefully you guys can see this. 0.001 to 0.003. So 1 thousandths to 3 thousandths is the clearance range. And what we're going to do, yeah, you guys can see. So we're going to open this. Oh, that's actually coming out here a little bit. So there's the Plastigauge. It's just this green little fiber. Can you guys see that? Well, you can. It's like a little hair. Yeah, there it is. So you can kind of barely see that. It's like a little hair. And it's just a little piece of plastic. Well, they call it Plastigauge. Actually, I think it's more like a wax. Actually, not exactly sure what it's made out of. But I just know it works really well. So we are going to check our clearances on our bearings here. So what we're going to do, we've got the bottom part of the bearing in there. We're going to cut just a little tiny piece of this and set it right on top there. And then when we put our bearing caps on, it's going to squish this down, and how thick or how much it squishes it down will show us what the clearance is. So we need 7 little pieces of this stuff. Where did it go? I dropped it. So 7 little pieces, 1 for each bearing. And then when you squish it down, this might be really hard to see. Let me get it right side up. Yeah. So it starts at, yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that. Get a pointer. Ooh. Let's come to this camera, actually. So you probably can't even see, but I'll give you the idea. So we'll just go to this scale right here. So the bottom says 0.003. So that's 3 thousandths, 2 thousandths, 1.5, and 1. So we're going to squish it down, and then the thickness of it, after it's squished, will tell us what the clearance is. If it's squished really flat, it means the clearance is really tight, meaning it mashed it down so there's very little room. So it had to spread it way out. If it's wide or narrower like that, it means it didn't have to squish it down super hard. So there's a little bit more room. So this would mean there's more room and this is less room. So this is 3/1000ths and that's 1/1000th, and then the two in between. So we're gonna squish it down and then use this little guide on the piece of paper to measure the thickness of how much it's squished down. And using Plastigauge is as easy as that. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, and number 6 dropped on the floor, so we're going to try it again. 6. So yeah, it's pretty simple to use Plastigauge. So we got those 2. Number 3. This is just a lot more fun than doing springs on a valves. A lot more fun. And like I said, so we set this in here dry. We're going to end up pulling the crank back out in a minute after we check our clearance here, just to make sure it's okay. And then we'll put some lube on here, some assembly lube on the bearings. So that's why we're going to be very careful just not to spin the crank right now. And then we'll also have to remember to put the rear main oil seal in. Okay, now bearing number 1. I can set in place and kind of get the bolts started. So we'll go through and crank these down. Number 2. Just set these straight on. Try not to move around too much because you want that Plastigauge to stay in place. Number 3. Number 4. So I'm showing all the steps I go through for this engine build. If you're new to this, we started with disassembly, taking the engine apart. In the past videos, we talked about what the machine shop did for me. I try to do most of the work myself, but there's some things that the hobbyist just can't do themselves because you don't have the proper lathes and things. Okay. What size are these? These aren't 19, are they? No, they're more like 21. Yeah. All right, we're just gonna finger tight, and then we're gonna go through and torque all these guys. The kind of bummer part is we got to do this twice because we've got to go through and check all of our clearances and then take it back off. You know what would be faster is if I did this with, yeah, but you got to torque it in a certain sequence, so I don't want to be messing it up. What are you guys up to? Why is the third one different? Was that the last comment? Did my comments drop off? Hi from Toronto, Canada. Robert's here. All right. There we go. So yeah, when you guys don't chat, I'm like, oh, did they fall off? Or sometimes my chat will freeze. Sorry I'm late, guys. Moab Wheeling's here. Thanks for joining us, Moab. Glad you found us. Moab, that's something I need to get down to. Get my YJ down to Moab. That'd be cool. Maybe in the future. But it is, good Lord, a good, I don't know, 14-hour drive or something. It's not close. So we're just getting these kind of finger tight here. Then we're going to go back and start torquing them. And then we'll back them all off and pull the crank, or pull the caps here and see how much it's squished. Gotta make sure we get our rear main oil seal. So bearing number 7 down here, which you guys can't really see on the close-up, but bearing number 7 is where our rear main oil seal will go. And where is my... Looking for my nice Craftsman wrench. There you go. And actually, when we go to torque these, we're going to start in the center and work out. Just make sure they're finger tight, snug. So when you're doing your final assembly like this, I had cleaned this crank, make sure all the dirt and debris and oil and gunk goes off. If you're cleaning, and the block, make sure the block is clean as well. But like the journals and your nicely honed cylinders, they will rust really quick if you clean all the oil and gunk off of them. Particularly the cylinders, they'll rust in like an hour. So you want to make sure that if those parts, take a little bit of WD-40. If you're hosing down your block, just cleaning things up, take a little bit of WD-40 and spray things down that you don't want to rust. And that'll prevent rust. Imagine that. Wait, why do I have 4 bearings? Oh my gosh, did I forget bearings? You guys, I've got leftover bearings here. Did I not look at the bottom of these and put some of these on without even putting new bearings in? Yep. You dummy. Pay attention to what you're doing. I know I've talked in the past about how I get to talking to you guys and checking comments and looking at the camera and yada yada, and I get distracted. Well, it's the honest truth. Like I start forgetting what I'm doing. So that one needed a bearing. I got half of them. Half is good, right? And then I try to go fast because everybody's watching and you want to just watch a guy tighten down 14 bolts. Yeah, my Plastigauge on these, I am peeking at that. It still looks fine. But I do need to pop these bearings in. Glad I saw them sitting here. Hello? Did you forget something? Oops. Yep. But this is the fun part of the engine build. Doing bearings and the crank. We'll get to pistons and all that. I can't believe I forgot to put bearings on these. That's funny. Actually, I did that on purpose just to talk about focusing on your work at hand and not getting distracted. Just wanted to demonstrate of like little things that can happen. And of course I would have figured it out because I would have pulled the bearing and the crank and the the Plastigauge would have looked exactly the same. I would have been, what? Did the first 3 and then I, popped over to do Plastigauge with you guys, started cutting Plastigauge. And then here we are. All right, Plastigauge looks good on that one. Let's pop this bearing in place. Okay, there's no more bearings left on my table over here. So I should be good now. That is one of the things that I worried about was doing builds like this. one of my fears is like I put everything back together and like I'm installing the Jeep or the engine into a Jeep and then I realized like, oh, I forgot to put the lifters in or something. Or, oh, I forgot to put the plug on the back side of the head because there's one core plug that goes on the back side of the head that we looked at last week. Just some little thing. On my green Jeep Kiwi, funny story, I did install my stroker engine on that. And before it even, brand new stroker build, putting it in, and then hooking everything back up, the fuel rail, all the vacuum hoses, everything, get radiator, coolant lines, just getting everything hooked up. Got it all back together and everything. All right, I'm super close to starting it. Like, we're almost done. I go and I start filling it up with coolant, and I hear just the sound of coolant just like pouring out the back of the engine. And I was like, oh no. And my brain just started going, what could be wrong? What could be like, is there like some huge hole in the head gasket? Like, what is going on? Is there a freeze plug that's just totally leaking? And what it was the little coolant sensor on the back of the head. And I just forgot to screw that little sensor in. It's just a little threaded sensor. Oh, but for a second, yeah, I was having a heart attack. Okay, now we've got all our bearings in place. Just snugging these up. We are going to go through and start torquing these in a sequence. The first torque setting is going to be 30 foot-pounds. Let's grab our torque wrench here. What are people up to? Hey, it happens. Get forgetful too when I'm distracted. Raphael, thanks. Hey, finally caught you on the live. Marcos, hey, welcome. Randy Jones. It's like me at work when people are talking to me. So distracting. Yeah. There's actually another little story for some of you that don't know. I worked in the intensive care unit for years, and I was working on a patient and was doing something kind of technical. I was actually figuring out a bunch of medications and things for this patient and getting stuff ready. And the father of the patient, super nice guy, super nice family. The father of the patient, main bearings are overrated. The father of the patient was just talking to me and talking to me and talking to me, being friendly. And I was at the computer, and I was kind of responding. And I said, and then it got to a point where I had to like tell the dad, I was like, hey, like I answered his last question, or whatever. And then I had to say like, hey, I got to take a minute and like focus on this and like focus on what I'm doing. So, because, working in the intensive care, you don't want to mess something up. You can use your footage as a way to double check your work. I've done that. Actually, you're saving weight by not running bearings. Yeah. All right, 30 foot-pounds, starting at the center here. And we're just going to work our way out. So yeah, focusing on your work is definitely a thing. And actually, I think, I don't want to be rude to that dad or mean to that dad or anything, or tell him like, hey, would you be quiet? I'm trying to focus here. But also, I was thinking about it. I was like, I bet he actually appreciated it that, here I am working on his kid and I'm taking it serious enough that I'm telling him like, you need to be quiet now. I need to focus on what I'm doing. All right, 50 foot-pounds. So we went through the whole series, starting the center, working out at 30 foot-pounds. And we're going to do it again at 50 foot-pounds. Yeah, bearings are overrated. That's funny. Whatever you can do to save weight. There's 3, number 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's 50 foot-pounds. We are going to go up to 80. This is my Craftsman torque wrench. Really like it. It's digital but click, so it has a digital readout, but obviously it's a click torque wrench. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, there we go. 80 foot-pounds. They're all final torqued. Back this off a little bit. I love your videos. Working on 92 Renegade, watching a few times, using them as I do mine. Awesome. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad they're helpful for you. All right, let's go through and where's my little breaker bar? Here we go. Now that we've got these all tightened down, let's go through and I wonder if this little breaker will do it. Undo everything I just did. And we'll check this Plastigauge. And then it's important to scrape all the Plastigauge off, but this will just tell us that our clearance is okay. If it's not, we'll talk about that. If your clearance is too tight, then you could have the machine shop cut the journals down on the crank a little bit if it was too tight. If it's too loose, I would double check that you're bearing. Wait, no, if it's too tight, and also double check that you're everything's clean. If it's too loose, you can run into the same problem where like you might have dirt or debris or something that was keeping it from squishing down properly. You can go to the point of like giving, if you had to get like thicker bearings or something, but at that point, I'd be checking with the machine shop. So you want to pull your caps off as straight as you can without like mixing it around too much, without moving it around too much, because you don't want to smear the Plastigauge. And you can see the little mark there on the Plastigauge, how it's kind of smooshed down. It's exactly what we're looking for. So I'm pulling up, trying to get it to pop straight up without smearing it around too much. Just eyeballing it. These look like they're going to be pretty good. Going to be around 2 thousandths. So in my book, what does it say? I want to say it was crankshaft main bearing allowable is 1 to 2.5 thousandths. So we're keeping all of our bolts in order. Yeah, all of these look really good so far. They're all nice and uniform, meaning like they're all squished evenly. Don't let me forget to put the rear main oil seal in this bearing number 7. Okay, you guys remind me. So I'll zoom in on this. When you're putting bearings, especially press ins, put them in the freezer the night before. Yeah, these bearings slide in pretty smoothly, this style of bearing. But yeah, the type you're talking about, press-in bearings and stuff, yeah, getting them cold can certainly help. Bearing number 3 there is always a pain to pull out. It's that thrust bearing. I'm trying to make sure the crank doesn't move on us. Start to finish doing an engine build. I wonder if you guys will follow the whole thing. We're gonna have to install this in the XJ. And bearing number 1, okay. So now we can take this and put my readers on. And then we're gonna, yeah, you guys can see, so we're gonna use the little gauge on here to measure. And we are about a little wider than 3, a little less than 2. So we're probably 2.5. Yeah, we are about 2.5 on all these. It's really hard to show you guys because you really got to get close. But I think we're within specs. So let me kind of get you guys a little closer to try to... I don't know how well you guys can see that. Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can see that mark on there. And then you just use your gauge here. So boy, that's really close to 2 thousandths. If I move it over to 3 thousandths, it's just a little wider. So yeah, it's probably 2.5. So allowable clearance was 1 to 2.5 thousandths. So we're at the high end. We're at the 2.5 thousandths, which is allowable. So we can live with that. So I glanced at all of the journals. They all look pretty good. One tip we're going to try here. Take it. Now we got to remove the Plastigauge. Next up, remove the Plastigauge. Where are we at with chat? When are you putting bearings, especially for the field? I went looking to buy myself a Jeep and was okay buying myself a fixer-upper because the wonderful and amazing job you do on this channel gave me the confidence to do my own projects. So thank you. Oh, Marcos, you're welcome. Yeah. You can find anything on YouTube. I do all kinds of research and find stuff and new tips and tricks and learn how to do stuff. Just replaced catalytic converter on one of my daughter's cars. I did catalytic converter, exhaust manifold, oxygen sensors, and seriously saved myself $2,000 because I spent about $650. I did an oil change on it as well, new gaskets, yada yada. I did a repair estimator, and it would have been close to $3,000. I spent $260, so saved thousands of dollars. That's the other thing, Marcos. You learn how to do it yourself, but you also save tons of money. Let's see. The trick I was telling you guys about, WD-40. So a little bit of WD-40 on the rag here. And last time I did this, it really helped take this, because we want this Plastigauge off. Yeah, it just helps kind of wipe it off there. So you guys might be able to see this one. I've used like plastic putty knives to scrape it off. But honestly, this WD-40 works pretty darn good. Little Plastigauge tip for you. But again, trying not to rotate or roll the crank. Sorry, I gotta move you guys a little bit. Give you a better view. And yeah, I don't know 100% sure, but I can't imagine how this Plastigauge would hurt anything, but instructions say remove it. So don't want to put all this effort in and then mess something up. So get this off of here. And then we're going to pull the crank out here in just a second, very carefully. So yeah, if you run into a clearance issue, you can either get thicker bearings or have the machine shop put the crank on a lathe and like just take off, you know, a thousandths of an inch or whatever needs to be done. But yeah, if I was at that point where it didn't just check out, I would be getting advice from the machine shop. Like, hey, this is what I did. Can you guys double check and see what they thought and have them maybe double check the clearance? Because you don't, if it's too tight, you can like burn up your bearing. Like your car will run initially, but if one of these was too tight and just squeezing on there too much, then you're going to burn up that bearing and wreck your engine. Okay, crank can come back out. Trying not to get ahead of myself. Got all the Plastigauge off of that. Actually, let's move over here while I'm thinking of it and not getting ahead of myself. Let's remove the Plastigauge on the back side of these guys. A little more WD-40 on my rag here. I spent yesterday binge watching to get caught up. That's awesome, Dave. How's Sasha doing? Miss her on your videos. She in college, right? She graduated. Yeah, graduated high school. She's doing really well. She is taking a year right now to work. She's actually working in the same hospital I work in, getting a little bit of experience there. And just kind of figuring out, because she wants to do something in healthcare. So she's figuring out what she wants to do. So yeah, she's doing well. She did buy another car. That's the one I had to do the dumb catalytic converter on. But we still have Sully, her XJ. And my next daughter in line will be driving that. So yeah, she's doing really good. Getting all this off, then I have my lint-free rag. I'll give all these bearings a final wipe down to make sure there's no lint on these. So yeah, you want everything clean, clean, clean. And our bearing number 6 here, and then, oh, come on. And number 7, this is the one our rear main oil seal will go into. Yeah, the WD-40 seems to work pretty good. Stuff works pretty good. So yeah, Sasha, she'll be in some future videos, make a guest appearance every now and then. And then I'll get my other daughter, who's going to be driving the XJ, involved in some videos as well. There we go. Looks good. We didn't forget to wipe that part off. Wish I could totally see myself doing. All right. Back to the crank. There we go. Without spinning it as gently as I can, I'll try to lift it out here. There we go. Let's set this over here on this. I got a clean pad right here. You guys probably can't see, but got a nice place to set it there. Next up. How difficult would it be to swap out a 2.5 for a 4.0? That's a very good question and something I've contemplated many a times. Personally, my opinion, I don't think it's worth it. I think if you want a 4.0, I think you sell your 2.5, get what you can out of it, and then go in the market for a 4-liter. I think like getting new engine, getting a new transmission, all of that, it would be so much work and hassle. And there's so many new lines, injectors and fuel rail and radiator hoses. Just like there's so many little pieces and so much time that I don't think it's worth converting a 2.5 to a 4.0. If I had a 2.5 and I wanted a 4-liter, I'd sell it, get what I can out of it, and then start shopping for a 4-liter. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I mean, heck, I'm the guy that forgot to put bearings in his crank. All right, now we're going to take some assembly lube. I got some good Redline assembly lube here. I'll try not to drip this on my floor too much. Now we're going to take a little bit and get some on each bearing here. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think of that 2.5 to 4.0. What do you guys think? Just a little bit of... And this thrust bearing number 3, we got to make sure we get a little bit of lube on the sides of it as well. Oh, I did pretty good there. I'm going to lube up these guys, the bearing caps as well. Oh, the rear main oil seal. I'm going to do that next. So you guys, so don't forget. Okay. Rear main oil seal. So that part goes in the cap. This part goes in the block. And now it's directional. So let me bring you guys around here, because this is really important, because if you put this in wrong, you're going to end up with a bad oil leak. And you're going to be like, oh, why is my Jeep leaking oil so badly? Okay, thanks, William. Was that William that asked that? Yeah. Hi. William. I'm with Dale, William. The best just to buy one with a 4.0. Yeah. Yeah, just so much work to get a 4. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but it's just... Okay, anyway, we're focusing on oil seals here. So we want it to go in like so. So the lip is faced towards the engine block. Because if we put it in this way, I don't know how well you guys can even see this. If we put it in this way, it's going to be easy for oil just to kind of like slip over that lip right there. And you can imagine if it's like just water flowing, it's going to flow easier that way than this way, where the tip of the lip, so it's like higher on this. I need my little pointer. Where's my little pointer? No, I probably set it somewhere. Well, it's higher on this side than this side, so we're going to go in like so. And we're just going to push it down in there good. And it'll kind of, on this 4-liter, it'll kind of self-center. Where the, what was it? It was a Grand Cherokee. It was another engine I did where you actually purposely offset it, because this side that goes in the cap obviously has these little wings on it. And I'll go like this. And this obviously, so you can actually kind of use this one to gauge how the bottom one goes in. I hope this is clear. So the lip on this one, if you look at the lip on this one, it's going to be oriented the same direction as the bottom lip. And it has these little wings on it that obviously fit in there like that. So it only goes in one direction. And we don't want any oil or anything on the bottom of it. Just slip it in like so. Like that. So the higher part of the lip is on the inside. And same thing with the bottom one. Makes sense? Okay. All right. My bolts back in place where they were. Okay. Enough chitty chat about that. let's get back to our lube. There we go. So gloves are still relatively clean. You guys can kind of see. So we're gonna go along and just smear our assembly lube around on the bearings just so it covers all surfaces. Bearing number 3 here, we're gonna make sure we get a little bit on the sides as well. Gonna have to come back and get a little bit more on that one. One reason I do like this red line assembly lube is it's red, so you can really see what you've lubed up and what you haven't. And we can get a little tiny bit on the surface of that rear main oil seal. I'm gonna just smear these on the bearing caps as well, same concept. Just making sure that we smear it around on all the surfaces. Oh, we got Super Bowl coming up. You guys gonna watch the Super Bowl? Right? Go Niners. Let's stir up some controversy. Ah! Get all these bearing surfaces. I'm gonna have to get a little bit more on bearing number 3 there. Okay. Assembly lube, just a tiny bit on my finger. On the side, so this is for that horizontal movement. Keeps it in line. Just a little bit. Yeah, these bearings from Engine Tech work just perfect. Honestly, this is what the 3rd engine I built with their parts, and never had an issue. I did get one set of bearings from them one time that had like, I don't know, I think it was a shipping problem or something. It had a few little scratches on the bearings. Contacted them, was like, hey, these bearings have a scratch on it. They're like, oh, okay, we'll send you a new set. It's like, no problem, just boom. Okay, what else do we gotta do? We gotta put the crank in, right? Don't forget that. Okay, here we go. Lift with your back. No, wait, lift with your legs. Ah. And just gently set it in. Don't have to be as worried about it moving because we've got some lube on it now. Okay, what are we up to? Too many things to change over from the 2.5 to the 4.0. Yep. I always offset the rear main seals, then add a touch of sealant to the end of the main caps, ready to install an oil pan. Never have I had a leak when I do it that way. Yeah, there's some of these engines. I'm trying to think of the last one I worked on. I want to say it was a Grand Cherokee. It was the Grand Cherokee, I believe, where you could offset the rear main oil seal. But this one, because of the way the bearing cap is and those little wings, you physically can't offset the oil seal. But Jeeps were meant to leak a little bit anyways, right? If you have a little bit of oil on the underside of your Jeep, just kind of makes it slip over the rocks and things a little bit easier. Okay, I got all my bearings in. I'm just kind of double checking in my head. I got all the Plastigauge off. These are all lubed up real nice. So we can go through and torque these all down. This time when we torque it though, we're actually going to skip bearing number 3. So it says to start in the center, go out, get everything torqued down except bearing number 3. Then kind of strike the ends of it and just to make sure everything's seated, and then go back and torque number 3. So we'll try it that way. A little bit here I want to wipe off the bearing face. or not bearing, just where the cap meets up. And the oil seal's in place. Yep. We're good to go. All right. Let's wipe our hands off. Marco Stale, what has been my favorite project as of yet and why? My favorite project? I don't know, honestly, probably like maybe doing the stroker engine. I built my Jeep I call Kiwi. It's a bright green Jeep. You guys have seen it in other videos probably. I put a 4.6 stroker in it. That was a super fun build. Doing a stroker, I mean, it's not real economical, but it's a lot of fun. Like, it made the Jeep just that much more fun to drive. Like, I was talking to a couple of guys, what day was that? That was Wednesday. I was talking to a couple of guys that were Jeep guys about the build, and I was like, oh yeah, like with the 4.6, the stroker, I could tell the difference. Because I had driven my 94 Wrangler for years, so I knew what it felt like. And then after I put the stroker in it, I could definitely tell there's a definite boost of power. So it has some get up and go. But it's not a race car. I mean, like I was telling the guys, it's still a Jeep. Drives like a Jeep, it's still a Jeep. It's not a race car. But it is kind of fun having that extra power. That if you want to drop a gear and give it some gas, it'll get up and go on you a little bit. That Jeep, I have the transfer case out on. Slip yoke eliminator will be coming on it here soon. All right, let me go make sure these are all a little finger tight-ish. And then we're going to go through and kind of do the same torquing sequence. This I'm just snugging them up. There we go. Yeah, that one just wasn't popped down in place. These others are. It's easy for these bearing caps to kind of get caught on the lip a little bit. There we go. All right. Let's start torquing. Let's see. Let me check real quick. I want to see how many concurrent. We're at 27 concurrent. Leaks means you have oil in it. Yep. I looked for 2 years for a Jeep with 4.0 and couldn't find. Was 2.5. So finally found a hardtop with 4 liter. Yeah. They can be hard to find because, yeah, they're really desirable. In my area where I live, you can find them pretty regularly. People know those, so they're a little more expensive. Marcos, I bet it's Kiwi. Kiwi was awesome. I liked OJ. Yeah, OJ, Kiwi, Sully. Those are my Jeep's names. All right, I got this set at 30 foot-pounds. We're going to start at the center. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go up to 50. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's go up to 80. And yes, we have 7 bearing caps, but we're going to 6. So 80, 80, 80, 80 foot-pounds. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And so we saved bearing number 3. We're going to torque it separately, but it actually wants you to kind of tap on the ends. Give it a little tippy tap. Just that horizontal movement. For some reason, they want you to do that and make sure. And then we're going to torque this guy down to 80. Actually, we're going to go 30, 50, 80. So there's 30. There's 50. And there's 80. Now I'm going to double check. And none of these are moving at all. And yeah, when you're torquing it down, start at the middle, go out. I'm just running the whole row here, double checking. Nothing is moving, which is good. We're moving just a fraction. Okay, sweet. Let me back this off before I forget. Don't want to leave your torque wrench compressed or torqued. Put that back. My 21. Put that back. And we should be able to spin this pretty freely. Should spin freely, not bind up. Just nice and smooth, which it is. So there we go. Crankshaft is done. Yay! That's awesome. Rear main oil seal. Peek at that real quick. So there you go. You can kind of see the edge of it poking out there a little bit. So what I'll do is take a little screwdriver here. A little edge right there. I like it. There we go. Pop him down flat. So yeah, that's why this style, you can't offset it. This side as well. Just make sure that oil seal's just seated down in there nicely. There we go. Looks great. How are we on time? 8:33. Wow, 1 hour. That's like perfect. Man, this is working out good. This is a good night. All right, what do we got? Give it a little tap, tap. Tap, tap. There we go. I named my 94 YJ Michelangelo. Oh, that's awesome. I repainted it green and tan with all the accents being beige, orange decals, beige cutouts, and I love the beast. Oh, that's a great idea. Michelangelo. That is awesome. I got Kiwi over there, but Michelangelo, that's so much cooler. That's awesome, Marcos. Tan top. You need to take that tan top and have it like dye the top a little bit with just like some rough turtle shell looking stripes. So to give it more of a turtle shell look, that would be awesome. Michelangelo what does he carry? Is he the one with the nunchucks? If you can incorporate that somehow. Oh, my glove is falling apart. Apparently that glove is done. It's a brand new pair of gloves too. All right, that is so cool. crank is in's looking good. Da, da, da. I love those, the look of the brass bearings and everything. Does not look good. This is going to be a cool build. So happy with how this turned out. Looks so nice, smooth. I did get that torqued down. Yeah, we're good. Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Next week, hopefully we could be doing pistons. Let's put some pistons in this thing. Maybe we'll remember to even put the piston rings on. Wait, we already did that, right? Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. Leave a comment after this video. I'll follow up with those later this evening. I always read the follow-up questions at the end. But good to see you guys, and I hope to see you next week. Have a good week. A good weekend. Woohoo! Good night, everybody. Deluxe Star, Moab, Marcos. See you guys.